Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The air smelled of ozone and burnt flesh. Lieutenant Commander Elias Frost wiped blood from his visor as he crouched behind the remains of what had once been a defensive barricade. Plasma rounds sizzled overhead, their distinctive whine competing with the screams of the wounded and dying. "Command, this is Frost. Delta Squad is down to 4 effectives, requesting immediate extraction," he hissed into his comm unit. Static answered him, punctuated by fragments of panicked reports from other squads. The Novae had appeared 3 years ago, their massive ships descending from the stars without warning or explanation. Encased in seamless obsidian armor and wearing expressionless silver masks, they had never attempted communication. No one knew what they wanted. No one had ever seen what lay beneath those masks. "Fall back to secondary position," Elias ordered, gesturing to his remaining squad members. Private Tors nodded grimly, her armor scorched and dented. Sergeant Damon and Corporal Winthrop acknowledged with quick hand signals. As they retreated through the rubble of what had once been a thriving colony outpost on Proxima B, a Novae fighter appeared from a side passage. Damon reacted first, his pulse rifle barking. The alien staggered but returned fire. The energy bolt caught Damon square in the chest, vaporizing his torso in a horrific flash. Elias fired 3 precise shots and the Novae collapsed. Something about the way it fell, a strange vulnerability, made him hesitate. Tors and Winthrop were already moving ahead, securing their escape route. "Commander." Tors called back. "We need to move." "Go, I'll catch up," Elias replied, approaching the fallen enemy with his weapon raised. The Novae warrior lay sprawled among debris, silver mask reflecting the fires burning throughout the colony. A large wound in its side revealed not the mysterious alien physiology that scientists had theorized, but something disturbingly familiar: red blood, human-like tissue. The alien's chest rose and fell with rapid, shallow breaths. It was alive. Every instinct told Elias to finish it off, but something, curiosity, compassion, or perhaps just battle fatigue, made him kneel beside the wounded enemy instead. "What are you?" he whispered. The Novae's hand shot up, grasping his wrist with surprising strength. Elias nearly fired but stopped when he realized the alien wasn't attacking. It was trying to communicate. "They lied to all of us," came a voice from behind the mask, the words in perfect, accented English. "You need to see." With trembling fingers, the Novae reached for its own mask. Elias tensed, his finger hovering over the trigger. No human had ever seen what lay beneath those silver facades. The mask detached with a soft hiss. Elias stared in disbelief. The face beneath was human, or nearly so, female, with pale skin, violet eyes that seemed to reflect starlight, and fine silver markings that traced across her temples like circuitry, but unmistakably human in structure and expression. "How?" Elias breathed. "Engineered," she whispered, blood bubbling at the corner of her mouth. "Both sides, experiments to find common ground. I was born human, raised Novae. False memories." She coughed, more blood appearing. "We're not the enemy, something else manipulating both species." From a compartment in her armor, she withdrew a small crystalline device. "Data, truth, hundreds like me on both sides. The war is a test." Elias took the device, his mind reeling. "Who are you?" A sad smile touched her lips. "Designation K-371. But before, they called me Aurora." Her eyes fixed on his. "End this lie, human, before there's nothing left of either of us." Her hand squeezed his once more, then fell limp. The violet light faded from her eyes. For a long moment, Elias remained frozen, staring at the face that changed everything. Then training took over. He carefully replaced her mask, lifted her body, and headed toward extraction. "Command, this is Frost," he said into his comm. "Mission parameters have changed. I'm bringing in a high-value asset, and tell General Hammond to clear his schedule." He glanced down at the masked figure in his arms. The war just got a lot more complicated. As he trudged through the battlefield toward the extraction point, the crystalline device felt impossibly heavy in his pocket. The weight of a truth that could save 2 species, or destroy them both. General Hammond stared at the body laid out on the examination table, his weathered face betraying no emotion. The silver mask had been removed, revealing the human-like features of the dead Novi soldier. "You expect me to believe this creature is human," he finally said, voice tight with skepticism. Elias stood at attention, still wearing his battle-scarred armor. "Not exactly human, sir, but close enough that it raises serious questions about everything we think we know about the Novi." Dr. Isabella Kwan, the base's chief medical officer, looked up from her preliminary examination. "The genetic structure is remarkable. Human base template with significant modifications, enhanced musculature, altered neural pathways, and these subcutaneous markings appear to be some kind of biotechnological interface." Hammond's eyes narrowed. "So they're using our own against us? Capturing humans, modifying them?" "With respect, sir," Elias interrupted, K371, Aurora, said she was born human but raised Novi. "This isn't about prisoners being converted. It sounds more like a long-term program." Hammond's fist came down hard on a nearby table. "And you believe the word of an enemy combatant? One designed to look human and manipulate our emotions?" "I believe the evidence, sir." Elias produced the crystalline device. "She gave me this before she died. Said it contains data about hundreds like her on both sides." "Both sides?" Dr. Kwan raised an eyebrow. "That's what she claimed. That there are modified Novi embedded among us as well." The silence that followed was deafening. "I'll have Intelligence Officer Matisse examine that device," Hammond finally said, taking the crystal. "Until then, this conversation is classified. You're dismissed, Commander." 3 days later, Elias found himself summoned to a secure room deep within the base. Intelligence Officer Vera Matisse waited inside, her dark skin illuminated by the blue glow of multiple holographic displays. "Commander Frost," she said without looking up. "I've been expecting you." "Officer Matisse," Elias saluted. "General Hammond sent for me." She turned, fixing him with penetrating eyes. "Yes, you're the one who brought in our guest." She gestured to a seat. "What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room." Elias sat, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. "You've decoded the crystal?" "Partially. It's challenging." She brought up a holographic display. "The data confirms your Novi's claim. There's a program called Genesis Convergence that's been operating for decades. They've been creating hybrid beings, humans raised as Novi, Novi raised as humans. But why? That's where it gets interesting." Vera's fingers danced through the holographic interface. "The data suggests this isn't simply about infiltration. It's an experiment in empathy, in understanding. Each hybrid is engineered to maintain their core identity while developing attachment to their adopted species." Elias leaned forward. "You're saying this could be about finding peace?" "Possibly. Or it could be psychological warfare on an unprecedented scale. But there's something else. The data mentions a third party, something called the Architects. They appear to be manipulating both sides." She brought up another image, a star map with a location highlighted. "This is a research facility where more hybrids are being created. It's behind Novi lines." Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. "We need to go there," Elias said. Vera nodded. "I've already requested authorization for a covert operation. Hammond approved it 10 minutes ago." Her lips curved in a slight smile. "Pack light, Commander. We leave at 0600. As Elias stood to leave, Vera caught his arm. "Why did you save her?" "The Novi." Elias paused, considering. "I'm not sure." Something in the way she moved seemed almost familiar. Her gaze sharpened. "Commander, according to these files, the first wave of hybrids was created over 30 years ago." "How old are you?" 32, he answered, a chill running down his spine as the implication hit him. "We all need to question who we really are," Vera said softly. "The war may be closer to home than any of us realized." The Novi stealth craft hummed softly as it cut through the darkness of space. Stolen during a previous raid, it had been modified to carry human occupants while maintaining its original signature. Elias checked his weapons one last time. Beside him, Vera adjusted the settings on a portable scanner disguised as Novi technology. Approaching drop point, came the pilot's voice through their comms. Good luck, and may God help you both if you're caught. The craft slowed, hovering above a desolate plateau on the Novi-controlled moon of Titan Prime. Below them, the angular structure of the research facility rose like a black crystal against the barren landscape. Ready? Elias asked. Vera nodded, her eyes meeting his with unexpected warmth. As I'll ever be. They dropped silently, their modified Novi armor allowing them to blend with any patrols they might encounter. The facility's external security was minimal, the Novi relied more on secrecy than force to protect their installations. This way, Vera whispered, consulting her scanner. The data indicates a secondary entrance through the geothermal vents. They move through shadows, every sense alert. Twice they froze as Novi patrols passed, but their disguises held. The vent entrance was concealed behind a maintenance panel, just as the data had indicated. After you, Elias gestured, watching their backs. The tunnels were narrow, hot, and dimly lit by strips of bioluminescent material. They crawled for what seemed like hours before reaching an access point to the main facility. Wait. Vera hissed, grabbing Elias's arm. There's something wrong. The security here is too light. As if summoned by her words, an alarm began to wail. Red lights flashed through the corridor ahead. Move. Elias pulled her through the access point just as blast doors began to close behind them. They found themselves in a wide laboratory space filled with strange equipment and dozens of cylindrical tanks, each containing a floating humanoid form. My God. Vera breathed, approaching the nearest tank. Inside floated what appeared to be a teenage girl, her skin bearing the same silver markings they had seen on Aurora. They're growing them. Elias moved to a central console, uploading a decryption program developed from the crystal's data. I'm accessing their database. Cover me. Vera positioned herself by the door, weapon ready. Hurry. That alarm wasn't for us. Something else is happening. The console flashed green as the decryption completed. Data flooded the screen, genetic sequences, psychological profiles, mission parameters. Elias downloaded everything to a secure drive. Vera, you need to see this. His voice was tight. These subjects, they're not just being sent to infiltrate. They're being positioned as peace brokers. Look at their psychological conditioning, empathy enhancement, conflict resolution training. Vera glanced over his shoulder, her proximity sending an unexpected shiver through him. And look at this. Communications with human high command. Someone on our side knows about this program. A sudden explosion rocked the facility. Dust showered from the ceiling. We need to move, Elias said, disconnecting the drive. Wait. Vera pointed to one of the tanks. That one's different. They approached the tank she indicated. Inside floated an older subject, a man in his early 30s with features that made Elias's blood run cold. He looks like you, Vera whispered. Before Elias could respond, the laboratory door slid open. They spun, weapons raised, only to face not Novi guards but human soldiers in covert ops gear. Identify yourselves, barked the lead soldier. Lieutenant Commander Elias Frost, Earth Defense Force, Elias responded. Intelligence Officer Vera Matisse. We're on authorized mission from General Hammond. The soldier lowered his weapon slightly. Colonel Dane, Special Operations. We weren't informed of other teams in the area. Vera stepped forward. We could say the same. What's your mission parameter? Destroy this facility and all evidence within it, Dane replied coldly. Including any witnesses. Elias and Vera exchanged glances, understanding passing between them. These weren't allies. They were cleaners, sent to eliminate the evidence they'd been sent to collect. Now, Elias whispered. They moved in perfect synchrony, diving behind equipment as Dane's team opened fire. Plasma rounds sizzled overhead as they returned fire, moving steadily toward a secondary exit. The drive. Vera shouted over the cacophony of battle. They won't get it, Elias assured her, laying down covering fire as she placed explosives by the tanks, not to harm the occupants, but to create a diversion. The charges detonated, filling the room with steam and fluid. In the confusion, they slipped through the exit and sealed the door behind them. They ran through darkened corridors, following the facility map they'd memorized. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew fainter as the facility's automatic security measures activated, treating all non-novi as intruders. They reached an emergency escape pod just as another explosion rocked the structure. As the pod ejected, they caught a glimpse of the facility beginning to collapse, Colonel Dane's team completing their mission despite the interference. In the confined space of the pod, they found themselves pressed together, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. "They'll try to kill us when we return," Vera said, her breath warm against his neck. "Then we don't return, not directly," Elias met her gaze. "We find allies first." Something shifted between them in that moment, trust transforming into something deeper. When their lips met, it felt like recognition, like coming home after a long journey. "We need to find out who we really are," Vera whispered against his mouth, "before we can save anyone else." Together, Elias agreed, holding her close as the pod accelerated toward the stars. The safe house on Europa Colony was little more than a reinforced bunker with basic amenities, but it offered what they needed most: security and anonymity. For 3 weeks, they analyzed the data stolen from the Novi facility, uncovering layer after layer of deception. "Look at this," Vera said, highlighting a section of code on her display. She had abandoned her military uniform days ago, wearing instead civilian clothes that somehow made her seem more approachable, more human. "These genetic markers are consistent across all hybrid subjects, but they're artificially inserted. They serve no functional purpose." Elias looked up from his own analysis. "Identification tags. More like signatures. Someone wanted to make sure these hybrids could be identified by those who knew what to look for." She pulled up another file. "And here's where it gets interesting. The same markers appear in personnel files from Earth Defense Command." "How many?" 17 confirmed, including 3 senior officers. "And one more." She hesitated. "General Hammond." Elias sat back, processing the implications. "So our own commanding officer is part of this experiment. The question is, which side is he really on?" Vera moved to sit beside him on the worn couch. "I don't think it's that simple anymore. The data suggests these hybrids aren't programmed for absolute loyalty to either side. They're designed to form genuine connections with both species, which explains why Hammond approved our mission. He wanted us to find the truth." Elias ran a hand through his hair. "But what about Colonel Dane and his team? Who sent them?" "Someone who wants the war to continue." Vera pulled up another file. "Communications intercepted between military installations. There's a faction within Earth Command that believes total victory is possible. They've been suppressing peace initiatives for years." Elias leaned closer, their shoulders touching. "And a similar faction exists among the Novi leadership. They're working together, maintaining the conflict. But why? What do they gain from endless war?" The answer came in the form of a transmission alert. Someone was attempting to contact them on a supposedly secure channel. Vera activated the receiver, maintaining security protocols. A holographic image appeared, a Novi figure, their silver mask gleaming. "Commander Frost, Officer Matisse. I am Tyrius, Chief Scientist of the Genesis Convergence Project." Elias reached for his weapon instinctively. But Vera placed a restraining hand on his arm. "How did you find us?" she demanded. "The hybrid you encountered, Aurora, was one of my finest creations. When you took her crystal, it contained a dormant tracking protocol." The Novi's voice was melodic, almost hypnotic. "But I am not here to harm you. I am here to offer alliance." "Why should we trust you?" Elias asked. The Novi reached up and removed their mask, revealing a face with predominantly human features, but with the silver markings and violet eyes they now recognized. "Because I am like you, Commander, a bridge between worlds." Tyrius's gaze was penetrating. "The facility you infiltrated was one of many. The war serves those who profit from it: arms manufacturers, political extremists, resource speculators. They exist in both our societies." "The architects," Vera said. "They're not a separate species." "No, they are a consortium of the powerful who benefit from conflict." Tyrius leaned forward. "We have been working for decades to create beings who can see beyond artificial divisions. Beings like you, Commander Frost." Elias felt a chill. "What are you saying?" "The subject you saw in the tank, your genetic duplicate, was not coincidence. You were one of our first successful hybrids, placed within human society 32 years ago. The revelation should have been shocking, but somehow Elias had known since he first saw Aurora's face. It explained his lifelong sense of disconnection, his ability to understand enemy tactics, his instinctive compassion for a fallen enemy. And me? Vera asked quietly. Tirius shook his head. You are fully human, Officer Matisse, which makes your compassion and open-mindedness all the more remarkable. She reached for Elias's hand, squeezing it tightly. The gesture said everything words could not, that his origin changed nothing between them. What do you want from us? Elias asked. In 3 days, the leaders of both species will meet for peace talks. Negotiations doomed to fail because of saboteurs on both sides. We need you to broadcast the truth simultaneously to both delegations. Why us? Because you, Commander, have credibility with humans despite your hybrid nature. And you, Officer Matisse, are trusted by those who know the worth of truth. Tirius's image flickered. I am sending coordinates. The choice to act is yours. As the transmission ended, Elias and Vera sat in silence, their hands still entwined. If what he says is true, Vera finally said, you're the perfect weapon for peace. Elias turned to her, vulnerability evident in his eyes. And if it's a trap? She leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his. Then we spring it together. That night, as Europa's storms raged outside their shelter, they found comfort in each other's arms. Their coming together was both an affirmation of humanity and a bridge between worlds, tender, passionate, and transformative. No matter what happens, Vera whispered in the darkness, what we've discovered, what we feel, it's real. Elias held her close, his doubts about his own identity momentarily forgotten in the certainty of their connection. Tomorrow we change everything. Or die trying, she agreed, kissing him once more. The Peace Summit was being held on neutral territory, a space station constructed in orbit around Mars specifically for diplomatic functions. Security was tight, with both human and Novi forces maintaining separate perimeters around their respective delegations. Elias and Vera had infiltrated the station by posing as technical support personnel. Now hidden in the station's central communications hub, they worked quickly to bypass security protocols. Defense Force encryption hasn't changed much, Vera noted as her fingers danced across the interface. 3 minutes until I can access the main broadcast system. Elias kept watch at the door, his mind racing with memories both real and implanted. Since learning of his true nature, fragments of his early conditioning had begun to surface, flashes of Novi language, faces of scientists who had created him. We're being played against each other, he said quietly. Always have been. The architects created the perfect scenario, a faceless enemy that could never be understood, only feared. Vera glanced up. The masks were genius in their simplicity. By hiding Novi faces, they prevented humans from seeing their similarities to us. And I'm guessing the Novi were told similar lies about human appearance. The hybrid program was initiated by scientists from both sides who discovered the deception. They created us as living bridges, beings who could recognize the shared humanity in both species. A soft beep from the console interrupted them. We're in, Vera announced. Ready for the data upload. Elias handed her the drive containing the evidence they had compiled, genetic records, communications between war profiteers, proof of sabotaged peace initiatives. This ends today. As Vera began the upload, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. A voice came over the intercom, security breach in communications. All personnel on alert. They've spotted us. Elias moved to barricade the door. How much longer? 2 minutes for full transmission. Vera worked faster, beads of sweat forming on her brow. They'll try to cut power to this section. On cue, the lights flickered. Backup systems engaged with a low hum. 1 minute, Vera announced, as the sound of running footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. The door shuddered under heavy impact. Elias braced himself against it, knowing it wouldn't hold for long. Vera, if this doesn't work. It will. Her eyes met his, fierce and determined. And if it doesn't, what we found together was still worth everything. The door burst open, revealing Colonel Dane and his team, weapons raised. Behind them stood General Hammond, his expression unreadable. Stand down, Commander, Dane ordered. Step away from the console. Elias held his ground. It's over, Colonel. The truth about this war, about all of us, is about to be broadcast to both species. You've been compromised, Dane snarled. Your Novi programming has activated. Hammond stepped forward. Is that true, Elias? Are you acting under Novi control? I'm acting under my own control. Perhaps for the first time. Elias straightened, addressing not just the humans but the surveillance systems he knew would carry his words to the Novi delegation as well. I am both human and Novi, like hundreds of others embedded throughout both civilizations. We are living proof that coexistence is possible. Transmission complete, Vera announced. On screens throughout the station and on planets in both territories, the evidence began to play, records of collaboration between war profiteers, genetic evidence of the hybrid program, testimony from scientists on both sides. Hammond's expression shifted from stern authority to something softer. He turned to Dane. Lower your weapons. Sir, our orders were given by those who profit from this conflict. Hammond removed a small device from his pocket, a genetic scanner. He ran it over his own arm, then displayed the results. The same markers identified in the hybrid program glowed on the screen. I was the 17th hybrid placed in human society, he said quietly. I've spent my career trying to find others, to build a network that could end this war. When Commander Frost brought in Aurora's body, I knew we finally had the evidence we needed. Dane hesitated, then slowly lowered his weapon. If this is true, everything we fought for was based on lies. But we can build something better on truth, Elias finished. Throughout the station, chaos erupted as the revelation spread. But in the diplomatic chamber, something unprecedented was occurring. The Novi delegation had removed their masks, revealing faces with the same hybrid features as Aurora, as Elias. The human diplomats, after initial shock, had begun to engage in real conversation. Vera moved to Elias's side, taking his hand. It's working. On the main view screen, they could see Tyrius addressing both delegations, explaining the decades-long deception and the equally long effort to build bridges between the species. Hammond approached Elias and Vera. There will be resistance. Those who have built fortunes and power on this war won't surrender easily. That's why we need to stand together, Elias replied. All of us, human, Novi, and everything in between. 3 months later, Elias stood on the observation deck of the renamed Unity Station, watching as the first joint human-Novi settlement was established on Mars. Beside him, Vera leaned against the railing, her hand resting lightly on her slightly rounded belly. Do you think our child will understand their heritage? She asked. Elias placed his hand over hers. They'll understand better than we ever could. They'll be born into a world where masks are relics of the past. Behind them, the door slid open as Hammond and Tyrius entered, deep in discussion about the next phase of integration. Commander, Officer Matisse, Hammond greeted them. The Council is requesting your presence. It seems your experience bridging worlds makes you ideal ambassadors for the new colonies. Vera smiled. Another adventure. Together, Elias agreed, as he had in the escape pod that had carried them to this moment, to this future where understanding had replaced fear and truth had overcome deception. As they left the observation deck, the stars seemed brighter somehow, witnesses to the birth of something unprecedented, a peace built not on victory, but on recognition of shared humanity across the cosmos.